How many of you saw the movie this afternoon, Contradiction? Wasn't that a wonderful movie? The filmmaker, the producer, Jeremiah Camara, is here today. We talked with him on our radio show just a few weeks ago about the movie. Really, really fascinating. We're going to have a chance to see it again later tonight. For those of you who are on the West Coast and you don't want to, you can stay up later, we're going to show it again later tonight. So we just have a brief amount of time for Jeremiah. Jeremiah Camara he's a writer, he's a poet, he's an award-winning poet. He's the author of the books Holy Lockdown, Does the Church Limit Black Progress? And The New Doubting Thomas, The Bible, Black Folks, and Blind Belief. He'll be signing copies of his book, Doubting Thomas, at the conclusion of tonight's program. He's the creator of the very popular YouTube series, Slave Sermons. You can look that up online, Slave Sermons. He's based in Atlanta, where he lives with his wife of 26 years. 26 is good, that's A to Z, so that's an accomplishment. Jeremiah has won several poetry awards, most notably the National Black Theater in Harlem. And he's performed poetry at the prestigious Apollo Theater. He's the author of a collection of poetry called Smoke and Haze, dealing with social injustice. He's notably the producer of this film, Contradiction, which many of you saw today, which explores how faith in a supernatural creator is affecting society, particularly African Americans. He's appeared on CNN, he's spoken at colleges and universities, at film festivals, and gatherings of other great minds. I met Jeremiah, when was that? In 2000, 3 or 4 years ago, in Manila, Philippines. We were both speaking there for the very first Philippine National Atheist Association, which was really exciting, and he gave a great talk. So if you didn't have a chance to watch it, you can watch it later tonight. So Jeremiah, where are you? Are you here somewhere, hiding? Come on up, yeah. Jeremiah Camara. He's a real doubting Thomas. So he only has a brief amount of time. So if you can do it like 30 minutes or leave questions or whatever, I'm sure people will have questions.
30 minutes here right now?
That's your time. 30 minutes. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't prepared for it.
Well, you can do questions then.
Yeah, we can do questions. Wow, we wouldn't even be here if Jesus would have just stayed a carpenter. You know what I mean? The Bible never made sense to me, especially the part, where it said that God made the world in about a week. I know that was a lie. Even Mexicans couldn't have done that, My wife, when we met, like Dan said, we've been married 26 years, She said she was an atheist, but I didn't believe her. Because the first time, she saw my body, she just kept saying, "Oh my God." First time I saw her, I was like, "Lord, have mercy," But you could, the first time I was ever in front of a mic, I was doing stand-up comedy. So you saw a lot of the humor, in the movie. So, how many people did get a chance to see the movie? Okay, cool. The first session that we had, we didn't get a chance to do a Q&A. So I know it was really packed in there. It was standing room only. So if anybody, from that first session has any questions that they want to ask, I'd be more than happy to ask. I'll just tell you this. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I didn't really come from a religious family, to be honest with you. We went to church, but my mother, I really didn't have that opposition at home like a lot of blacks do have. You know, my parents were behind me 100% everything that I did. You know, it's my mom, she's 87 years old now. And she's like, look, go get them, you know. And she has my books, and she gives her books to my, you know, her friends and stuff like that. And I'm just so glad that I have a mom like that who's in my corner. So I really didn't have that opposition. I did manage to go to church quite often. I was seeking this spirit, you know. I wanted to fall out and pass out and speak in tongue and all that kind of stuff too, you know. But every time I tried to speak in tongue, you know, it just didn't work. I just kept saying, you know, yabba dabba doo, you know, it never worked for me, you know. And so here we are at Freedom from Religion Foundation. I just want to thank, you know, Dan Barker and Annie Laurie Gaylor. I mean, you guys put on, this is tremendous. You know, this is tremendous. Everything is just, you know, and the whole staff, everybody that put this thing together, from the hotel to this facility to everything. I just want to thank you for having me out. Dan and I, we had a, you know, real good time in the Philippines, and I get kind of fiery sometimes when I speak, so they call me the reverse preacher, you know. I actually preach the opposite of what you think with my emotions, but I mean, I learned that in the black church. There's a lot of entertainment there. You all have seen me with this glove on. It's Dan's fault, actually. I have a pinched nerve in my hand, and it's all because of Dan, because, you know, I'm an aspiring pianist, right? And I said, Dan, can you spare, like, you know, some time where I can get in there and play some of the pianos? He said, you know, when I told him a while back I was playing the piano, he said, listen, man, I got three things, the three most important things for becoming a pianist. He said, the first thing is practice. I said, okay. He said, the second thing is practice. I said, okay. He said, but the third thing is practice. And I kept practicing and practicing. I wound up getting a pinched nerve in my palm, you know. So hopefully you don't mind, I'll just give you a fist bump as opposed to that. So, all right, we can get on with the Q&A. Yeah. Hi.
I will scream it if you prefer. Oh, there we go. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeremiah. So we saw the movie this afternoon. It was wonderful. I know that
Thank you.
many people here enjoyed it. You know, what has been in this context today, there's a lot of like-minded people who certainly were enjoying the film and took it the way you intended. What is the response, you know, let's say from either some of the people that are in the film who, you know, it is their own words, they don't come off looking all that, you know, well, or maybe when you showed it, you know, to, like, let's say communities or in places where you don't have a like-minded group of people, you know, what kind of reactions do you get from this type of film? I
think that the most surprising thing so far was the lack of backlash. And I think the reason is because in order to, you know, defend yourself, you have to know a little bit about your religion. And they don't know anything about it. You know, so there's people that are, one person, you know, she came up to me and she said, you know, you just made, we had like 400 people at our premiere, you know. And she came up to me, she said, you just made all of Christians, you know, just look stupid. You know, and I didn't debate them in the movie, I just let everyone talk. And it was, and one guy in New York, he said, don't make me look like a fool. You did that, I didn't really make you do anything. And so, no one has really challenged it. We've reached out to the church community. They won't have us, of course, you know, and a couple of the prominent preachers in Atlanta, they've seen the film, you know, but they won't touch it because they know that if this gets in the hands of their parishioners, they'll say, wow, this stuff does make sense, and so they just keep it away from there. But it's been received positively for the most part, but as a writer, a filmmaker, and an artist, an aspiring pianist, I'm not always the best business mind behind it, because I'm busy making it, so I can use all the help that I can get. And I say that everywhere, but that's true, because if you notice, it just takes one person to see the film and say, oh man, and I couldn't get it in Bill Maher's hand. I saw him back in 2012 when it wasn't complete. But I'd like to, one lady mentioned, she said, have you been on NPR? That would be a dream to get on NPR. I would love to get on it so that everyone can know that, hey, there is a segment of African Americans that don't subscribe to this stuff, And as I travel around the country, you would be shocked at how many black people don't believe this stuff. I mean, but they're in the closet with it. And it's just, hey, I'm gonna lose everything if I come out with this, my wife, my mom, my family, they're gonna ostracize me. So it's just this deep fear. But once you present this stuff, people look at this, they'll say, dang, this makes a lot of sense, but they'll have this cognitive dissonance,
Ready for another one?
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say you've done an important thing.
Thank you.
And second of all, could you talk more about the money and how these wolves exploit the black community all the way back from the Civil War and to the present today?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I'm gonna bring up something a little more current. And one of the things that broke my heart and almost got me out of this business, I've been doing this for like 25 years. I was into this before a lot of, this whole stuff was going on. And, but what happened recently this year almost made me give it up. I call it the Harriet Tubman business that I'm in, And Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed more if they only knew they were slaves, And, but what just happened this year with Creflo Dollar, we call him Klepto Dollar. He asked for $65 million. He wound up getting $70 million for a plane. And the street that he's on in Atlanta is a street called Old National Highway. And the street is crime-ridden. There's all kind of stuff that goes on that street. And you get a plane so that you can go out and preach mythology around the world, but there's no way to measure whom you've reached, or what the effect of them being reached is going to have on society. There's no way to measure it. And I thought about all the elderly people who could have got their mortgages paid. I thought of the science and math academies that you could have built with that money. I thought about the young men, African-American men who have felonies, who are now disenfranchised for life. Let me tell you, I did a lot of things when I was coming up as a teenager. I just didn't get caught. Okay, I'm no better than a lot of the young black men who have felonies but will never get an opportunity. And so you have this, you hold this against them for life. Look at all of the training that $70 million, you could have, created trade schools and got them, just so much beside a jet plane. And so I was so disappointed. I almost just said to heck with it and went into the medical marijuana business, that's, because there's a lot of that going on in the Bible anyway. That's what the whole burning bush thing with Moses was about anyway. But when Dan, he called me, he said, hey man, I want you to come on out. So I wasn't going to pass that up. So and your feedback today, from the movie has really, inspired me even more. So I think I'm going to stay with this Harriet Tubman business a little bit longer, yeah.
The black churches are involved in a lot of social activism. They work with Jobs with Justice. They were front and center in Missouri expansion of Medicaid, trying to get that through. And in the Ferguson Commission, they're working with officials on that. How do we keep that activism when, without the religion?
Dan, John chapter 1, verse 1, right? You know that by heart, and I can answer that question? In the beginning, okay, I'm going to translate, okay? In John chapter, in the beginning was the Word. Okay, in the beginning, that's going to be a tough job, and this is why. In the beginning, as far as African Americans in this country, was the church. And the Word was with God. And the church was with blacks. And blacks were with the church.
And the Word was God.
And the church was the black community. You see where I'm going? There was no separation. Shame on you, Dan.
You know it in Greek. I can say it in Greek.
Okay.
All things that were came into being because of him.
Right. And everything that we've ever gotten, all the steps that we've made, was because of the church. So this is how it is perceived in the black community. So when you take that away, you pretty much take everything away. Now, you'll take the social aspect away from it. But, I don't know, my experience is this, and this is all I can go by. Being out of the church is so liberating. It feels so good to know as opposed to believe. In fact, our ancestors would have been eaten alive if we believed there wasn't something lurking behind those bushes as opposed to knowing that a predator was behind those bushes. Belief can get you in trouble. And I'm just free now. And I would take that over the social aspect any day because, you take a lot of people that you go to church with, you guys put on airs. I remember one time I was with my church community and they're so judgmental. Christians are some of the meanest people out here. And I was sitting there, and they looked over we were at a restaurant, and there was this guy drinking a beer, And the slogan of Miller is, the can says Miller High Life. And he looked at him, he said, look at that. If he only knew what the High Life was. And I wanted a beer so badly, So I just saw the whole charades and all of that kind of stuff. And you guys heard my story about Martin Luther King and his assistant on the second one, about how he was so protective of me interviewing Martin Luther King and was so uncooperative. And later that night, I went to my hotel room and I got a phone call about 11:45 that night. He said, Jeremiah, I have watched 11 of your slave sermons. And I'm telling you, I was thinking the same thing. He was so immersed in the church. Everything he did, he bowled with the church. He ate with them, everything. And now he's out the church and he has this freedom, this liberty. And it just feels so much better than putting on these airs and staying around people you really don't like in the first place,
Yes. My husband and I were just overwhelmed with your film. We were really very impressed, and we were wondering, how long did it take to do this? What is the oldest picture you had and the newest picture?
Wow. It took 18 months to do. The oldest picture that I had, probably that Praise House, I think it said. When the missionaries were from Europe and they were in Africa, that went way back, like 1800s. And the newest one, I can't recall what the newest one was. I don't
You
really
had
know.
Pope Frank there, didn't you?
I'm sorry?
You had Pope Frank, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
That's pretty new.
Yeah, that's pretty new. And he's an atheist, you know. He is. And so is Obama.
So, one more question.
Okay.
One last question.
One last question.
Okay, what are you working on now? What are we going to see next from you?
I don't know. I may do some comedy, you know. I mean, I've been praying about it. But I mean, I know God is not going to answer my prayers. Here's his son on the cross crying out for help, and he said to hell with him, so I know he's not going to help me out. You know, he has all these mansions in heaven, but let his son be born in a filthy manger. I mean, what kind of father is that, you know? So I don't know, but we'll see. I'm in between projects right now, but I got to do something because I have a creative itch. I got to do something. But thanks for coming out. I appreciate you guys and looking forward to coming again. Thank you.